Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
And a good morning to you. A happy Friday. It's February 10th, 2017. 21 days into the reign of Donald J. Trump. There's no way we can do this for 4 years. I just want to say there's no way. The good news today is that yesterday our founding fathers saved us. Their system of 3 co-equal branches of government worked, and the courts, in no uncertain terms, unanimous decision, told Trump that he was not the emperor, essentially. That was gratifying. It's been a long time since our crowds won anything, so it was good to be reminded of how good that feels. But, of course, the nonsense just keeps on coming. This is an administration that will not give us a moment to relax. I wish there was a way to quantify sort of the interior damage to people's psyches and bodies that this stress, this constant anxiety is creating. Sort of a measure like the, gross domestic, anxiety index. It would be higher than it's ever been, sky high, because these guys, if they're good at one thing, they're good in trafficking in fear and anxiety, and then using that. As usual, I don't know where to start. The decision last night was, as I said, the best thing that could have happened. Trump, within seconds, tweeting in all caps, I'll take it. What did he tweet? Make America great. Whatever. I mean, he's raving. He is raving. David Brooks, trying desperately to comprehend this guy, is again talking about the fact that it's his wounded psyche, Trump's messed up emotional self, that seems to induce him into a state of perpetual war with enemies far and wide, seen and unseen, conjured in his imagination or otherwise, that for whatever reason, his unconscious, he's not aware of what's driving him. This unconscious seething mass of wounds, of longings for love and needs that drive him to, to tweet, to attack when he feels in any way threatened. And Brooks says we're all sort of at sea because trying to address what's happening from any kind of stable position is pretty much impossible because Trump is so unstable that he's never in the same place for more than 2 seconds. Huge flip-flop 180 today in regard to China. Whoa. Somebody got to him, some grown-up got to him and scared the bejeebers out of him and made him talk, finally, to the Chinese president and unequivocally state to the Chinese president, all right, so this one China thing, I guess, yeah, we're behind that. Unbelievable. And again, the people who voted for him are not paying attention. They don't know that he's flip-flopping on almost everything that he said he would do. They just don't care. But Brooks, trying to understand him, says, it's an understanding of psychology would help more than an understanding of political science when you're dealing with this particular administration. Because he says, obviously we are now being governed by a president whose perception of the world, and this comes courtesy of Bannon too, whose perception of the world is of a dark and savage place, and therefore the only smart thing that a nation and a people who want to survive need to do is to be ruthless. Is to be ruthless and selfish and callous and determined to survive. The stakes are so high that, you throw out the rules. His starting point, that the world is this dark, savage place, is already false. False. It's way too dark, a picture. Way too dark. But that's why Trump will state with absolute conviction that murder rates are at a 47-year high. Even though the truth is that murder rates are close to a 57-year low. It is, Brooks says, the utter conviction in Trump's head that we are engaged in some apocalyptic war against Muslims and terror that motivates almost everything else that comes out of his head. So he says, you see a cycle now, and we're going to live through it maybe 10 times a day, day after day after day, and it is this. Trump, there's a perception of threat, there's an insult, there's making of another enemy, there's aggrievement, there's self-pity, assault and counter-assault, and we're back to threat, insult, and on and on and on in the widening gyre. If you look at all the stories where I'm saying, where do we start? Where do we start? You look at all the stories every day, so many are built around falsehoods, vengeance, enmity. This is the world we're in. This is the leadership we have. But I got to tell you, the big story remains the Russians. The big story remains Trump prior to the election and since the election, the connection between Trump and the Kremlin and Trump's closest advisors and the Kremlin. And we haven't seen a lot about that of late, except, of course, for the Washington Post story breaking today, which is huge, about General Flynn, the National Security Advisor. This is a big story. I'll get to it in just a moment. I am hoping the reason that we haven't seen a lot of late about all this Russia stuff, from the dossier to the state oil company to the phone call with Putin that somehow didn't get recorded, all these kinds of things, like what is really going on there. I'm praying that there are some crackerjack journalists, noses to the ground, working this thing night and day, relentlessly, and eventually someone's going to break through. It would be the biggest story of maybe the century. And if you think serious reporters aren't trying to break it, it would make Woodward and Bernstein's little item in the Washington Post that day about a break-in look like nothing. I don't know. I'm just praying that that's what's going on, and I cannot believe it's not, knowing how many truly great investigative journalists are out there and how much many of them would want to get this story. But last night, I read this Washington Post story that is just mind-blowing. I have to tell you that National Security Advisor General Michael Flynn, I don't think is going to survive much longer. Of course, I look at a lot of his circle, and I think this can't stand. Flynn ain't going to be able to survive. The reason being he lied, not only to us, but here's the big problem. He lied, apparently, to the vice president, to Pence, who then took that lie and told us, the American people, that so-and-so and so-and-so and so. You don't hang the vice president out there with your lie to further the lie without some blowback. So here's what happened. This is a potentially illegal thing that Flynn was involved in. That prior to the election, that Flynn spoke to the Russian ambassador to the United States and assured the ambassador to just don't worry. Obama is about to throw sanctions on you guys. He's pissed off about them messing around in the election. But don't worry. Don't even react to it because we're coming in and we'll take care of it. If the guy who is now the National Security Advisor in fact had that conversation with the ambassador from Russia, it could well constitute an illegal action. Flynn, Wednesday, denied that he had ever discussed sanctions with the Russian ambassador. He was asked specifically about it twice, and twice Flynn said, "I did not." Interestingly, yesterday, the next day, Flynn, through his spokesman, said, while I indicated that I had no recollection of discussing sanctions with the ambassador, I can't be certain that the topic never came up. This is the kind of equivocating, the legalese, the I can't recall, I can't say, I couldn't be certain, that suggests that he lied and now he's trying to back up. The other thing is the spokesman came out and said that because the FBI is continuing to investigate Flynn and his communications with the ambassador, and they've got stuff on tape. You think they don't listen in to the ambassador? Come on, let's get with the program. They might even have a transcript of it. They could have said, "Hey, Flynn, here's you not talking about sanctions to the ambassador." So Obama's still president. He's president for like a few more weeks. And he is finally taking action about the Russians meddling and hacking in our election process. And the Obama administration is about to slap Russia with some sanctions. And then they see that Flynn is talking to the Russian ambassador. So this is all troublesome because Pence, our vice president, has made public statements that say that, in fact, there were no conversations, texts, calls between the Trump camp and the Russian ambassador camp, and no one ever was talking about these sanctions. Pence has said this. In an interview with CBS News, here's our vice president. They did not discuss anything having to do with the United States' decision to expel diplomats or impose censure against Russia. And to suggest otherwise is to give credence to some of these bizarre rumors that have swirled around the candidacy. Well, fact is, those weren't rumors. They were facts, and there was contact, and the sanctions were discussed. No less than nine current and former officials in senior positions, so they get to see these transcripts and intercepts of calls and texts and email. 9, none of whom can say who they are. They all have to speak in condition of anonymity because they're discussing intelligence matters. 9 told the Washington Post that Flynn talking to the Russian ambassador was explicitly talking about the sanctions. 2 of these 9 went further, saying that Flynn urged Russia, don't overreact to these penalties Obama's putting on you, because we'll be able to, review all of this as soon as Trump's sworn in. The fact that Flynn is now backing away shows he knows he'd been caught. Flynn's interaction with this Russian ambassador really became of interest when, you'll recall, when Obama did this at the very end of his presidency, he expelled 35 alleged Russian spies from some place in Long Island. He forced the closure of some Russian-owned facilities in Maryland and New York. You're remembering this, right? Remember Putin's response? It was like right around Christmas time. Do you remember Putin's response? Whenever that kind of thing, when a country throws out another country's, embassy staffers, this, that, and the other thing, and says they're spies and we're throwing them out and we're doing this and that, every other country does the same thing. They throw it. It was expected. Putin would throw out Americans out of Moscow and blah, 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 blah. He didn't do anything. In fact, he smiled. Remember? He smiled and said, and didn't he say something about, didn't he invite children over to the it was bizarre. It was like Obama had done something nice. And Putin said, no problem, I'm going to focus on the restoration of our relationships in the coming administration. And then Trump responds, right before he's sworn in, Trump responds with effusive praise for Putin's restraint. Great move, Trump says on Twitter. Great move. I always knew he was very smart. Now, when Putin didn't respond, as Putin always did, to our sanctions, Obama's White House was stunned. And it raised immediate suspicion that Moscow must have been promised something. And that triggered U.S. spy agencies to start looking. And this is when they find interaction between Trump's people and the Kremlin. One of the officials, obviously on the Obama side, said clearly something happened in those 24 hours between Obama's announcement of sanctions and Putin's strange response. Something happened in between the two. So intelligence officials began poring over all the intelligence reports, all the intercepted communications, diplomatic cables, and lo and behold, they saw it. Flynn. And the Russian ambassador had been communicating. Not just by phone, by text. They've been texting each other. They've been telephoning each other. Now, the Trump campaign, knowing that was known, acknowledged that those were there were some contacts. We were making sure that we could set a great date for the president to, they came up with some bullshit. And that's when Flynn told Pence, whoa, nothing like that happened. And Pence comes out and says, this was never discussed. General Flynn was it was a courtesy kind of thing to the ambassador. Now we know they've been caught in the lie. Here's what they said. The lie was, yes, Flynn reached out to the Russian ambassador on Christmas Day to extend holiday greetings. And Sean Spicer said, the call centered on, the logistics of setting up a call with the president of Russia and Trump after the election. Another official said, I can tell you that during these calls, sanctions were not discussed whatsoever. And then Pence comes out and doubles down and says, those conversations that happened around that time when the U.S. took action to expel diplomats had nothing whatsoever to do with the sanctions. Those are the vice president's direct words. And now we've got current and former U.S. intelligence officials saying that is not true, and they can prove it. Consequently, Flynn backing away. I can't be sure. Well, maybe we did talk about. Geez, I don't remember. I can't recall. That's the last we've heard from Flynn. That yesterday. And as you know, like Trump, Flynn has shown a love for Russia that is at odds with the views of almost all other military and intelligence people. He's the one who was shown having a great time sitting next to Putin in 2015 at a party that was thrown by the propaganda arm, the RT network. Flynn was paid by the Russians to speak. Guys, it's the Russian thing. I don't know what Russia has on Trump, but they got something good. It explains everything. And stop and think of all the Trump officials, some now gone, one of whom ran his earlier campaign, that are under investigation for their dealings with Russia. That's the big story today. Not, well, the other big story is obviously the three-judge panel's decision, but that's a big story. And as I said, I am just praying that some journalist is going to get a breakthrough. And because you got to bet, because this involves the Russians, they're really smart about clandestine crap and covering their footsteps and fingerprints. And there's a lot of big questions floating around out there. And so I say, I don't care what else is going on, keep your eye on that, okay? That's more important than anything. And eventually, I think, it's what's going to take this administration down. I happened to hear an interview with the chief ethics counsel for George W. Bush. Now you could say, well, hey, he was the ethics counsel for George W. Bush. This guy, his head, I think, is going to explode. He was sputtering like over the latest Trump conflict of interest and the commingling of business and governance. And that alone, there's another thing that should take him down. We're talking about hugely impeachable offenses. We ain't talking about blowjobs in the Oval Office. We're talking about things that rise to levels of treason and incredible malfeasance in office. One of the more chilling things I saw yesterday on Twitter was a tweet from a Trump supporter, David Duke. And David Duke said this: "Our beautiful country has..." Now, this is after the court. The court said, "Sorry, Trump, your executive order is just flat out, no, No, the stay stays. David Duke, rising to his president's defense, tweets this: "Our beautiful country has been subverted by the most dangerous enemy known to man, the judicial system." J-U uppercase. The most dangerous enemy known to man, the judicial system. What did I tell you about what Hitler did when he was coming to power? There were two groups that had power that he needed to subvert to make his rise possible. They were the media and the judiciary. Now, somebody pointed out the other day, I think it was Clarence, that when you go after the media, that's a dog whistle to anti-Semites. Because what's something that's been poured into your head from day one? Who's in charge of the media? Huh? Jews. Well, now we have Duke telling us that it's also the judicial system. Once you start planting these things, the Jews in the media, the Jews in Hollywood, the Jews in Wall Street, and the Jews in the judicial system, you are doing exactly what Hitler did. Yeah. Unbelievable. Or not. Anyone who ain't paying attention, anyone who's whistling by the graveyard is aiding and abetting these people. Paul Krugman today saying that which I fear as well. Trump also seems to be setting up in that tweet that he tweeted when the initial judge, the Washington state, the federal judge in Washington said, no, this is, unconstitutional. I'm putting a stay on it. Trump tweeted what? That if anything happens, it's your fault. I can't remember the exact. He says, you have put the country at risk. If we're attacked, it's on you. That was essentially, okay. He's said similar things since, as has Spicer and others. And I got to tell you, if that ain't setting the table for if a terrorist attack does occur in this country. And the way Trump is egging on ISIS and dissing Muslims left, right, and center, he's making a very fertile ground for an attack here. Not keeping us safer, quite the opposite. And it's hard not to wonder if Bannon and Trump don't want a terrorist attack. Because it's all they need to seal the deal. Hitler had his Reichstag fire. You create this big thing. You declare a state of emergency. And as Paul Krugman points out today, think of 9/11. After 9/11, what was your response? The overwhelming response of the American people, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, it didn't matter, was to rally around the president. I remember saying, I'll do whatever you want. What do we do here to keep ourselves safe? And he said, go shopping. I'll never forgive him for that. That's what he said, go shopping. There's no reason to think that if there's another horrific attack here, that Americans would not immediately do the same. Rally around the president. Unquestioning support for the man in the White House because we're under attack. Well, that didn't go so well the last time we rallied around the White House, right? They used it. Go shopping while we invade Iraq, while we use this opportunity to pretend that Saddam Hussein had something to do with this. And it wasn't good, right? But the consequences, if Donald Trump finds himself similarly empowered, it would be. I'm not sure that I wouldn't even think it was a false flag operation. I got to tell you that. If we're attacked, that Russia could help with this. Russia could help. God knows. So anyway, I don't mean to depress you, but this is a... Krugman really says, I think you're seeing that Trump is blatantly telegraphing his intention to use national misfortune, a terrorist attack, to grab even more power. And the question is, who the heck's going to stop him if that happens? Anyway, here's his last response. Here's his last thoughts on it. Excuse me, Krugman. We can't handle another post-9/11 style suspension of doubt about the man in charge. We cannot. If it happens, if there's an attack here and we just say, help us, save us, do what you have to, horrifying times, call for huge measures, go for it. If we do that, America as we know it will soon be gone. That's Krugman today. America as we know it will soon be gone. Joe's on the line. Hello, Joe. Joe?
Hi.
Hi.
All I just wanted to say is, when is our country going to wake up and realize that it's not the religion, it's not the nationality, the culture that kills terrorists or killers. It's the person.
Yeah.
It's the person that has the idea in their head. It's not a religion. It's not the color of their skin. That's with anything. I don't know when we're going to wake up about it. Like they'll say, this person here, because they're that nationality, is this way, or that one. It's the person, just how they're made up. It's not their religion, their culture, their color of skin. It really isn't.
Oh, you just sound like...
Our country can't get past that.
Yeah, I know. You sound like a liberal.
No.
Yeah, sorry.
I do sound like a liberal. But it really... I don't understand.
But that's too difficult to deal with individuals. It's so much easier to paint with a broad brush and not have to do that kind of more complex individual. Is this person, if the color of your skin or the religion you have or the country you come from dooms you immediately, that's absurd, of course. We know that's absurd.
Yeah,
but that is how the ham-fisted manner in which he will keep us safe, when in fact it will have the exact opposite effect. I feel we're much more vulnerable now since he's in charge.
And I hate to tell Donald Trump, but most of the terrorism comes from domestic terrorism.
Absolutely.
The people that live in this country.
That's right.
So he's confused about the whole thing.
Well, you see, but
he's confused about everything.
Yeah, you're spouting facts, Joe, and I'm sorry, they have no standing. They have no standing with this guy. So, thank you, you old liberal, you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, bye. And I think we got Beth. Hello, Beth? Beth?
Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
Yes, hi. If I could just share a quick story, just with everything that's going on, it just seems to correlate pretty well.
Okay.
And that was when I was a child. My parents had very good friends who were immigrants from Greece. And the one woman shared a story about when she was a child and living through the Nazi occupation of her village in Greece. And her father was a judge in the community, and she remembers being in school with her brother, and the Nazis forced all the children out of the school to watch them parade her father, plus the doctors, the priests, the journalists, teachers, anybody who was someone of prominence in that community. Marched these men naked through the street, marched them into the ocean, and shot them.
Oh, my God.
And her brother went running in to try to save the father, and he
Was
never
shot,
saw
too.
either of them again.
Right.
And I just find it funny that what we're seeing is very similar today. We're going after those same institutions.
That's right.
In the sense of, anybody who's in the law, you're an ambulance chaser. That's been diminished. Because of the Roman Catholic pedophilia thing and other issues within various churches, that's been diminished. And now what you're seeing, especially with the courts and the media,
Yeah.
it's almost as though, and also you fear with doctors as well because of the healthcare system.
Oh, that's true,
They just
too.
want money. That's all it is.
That's right. So,
Besides the code words that you've said, honestly, just with the anti-Semitism that is deeply growing
right,
within this group.
right,
And I find this incredibly scary.
as you should. I
And
sometimes
on
think
side-
I feel like I'm really in a extraordinary bad dream. This is really happening.
I know.
I feel like we're,
And the thing I find incredibly frustrating is just the fact that the people that are supposed to be representing us aren't doing their job.
No.
And on a side note, as far as Trump's 180 now with China and the one China, I would bet you dollars to donuts that the Chinese intelligence let it be known. You know what? We know you were dealing with Russia, and we know what your dealing was, and we're going to release it.
I wish someone would.
We'll see how he continues. Because don't forget it. I'm going after China for manufacturing. China. And
He's
if we
back.
start
Yeah.
stepping back, we know that's what it is.
He'll back. He. Oh dear. Yeah, it's frightening. And I'll tell you, it is true that Russia staging an attack here could seal the deal.
I know.
Or an actual attack, which certainly could happen too.
Yeah. Because I think for a while I wouldn't be surprised with the transition that it was Russian intelligence helping to make sure with these idiots that nothing did happen during those couple of days, the first couple of weeks.
Yeah. Dear Lord.
Rather than listening to our own intelligence community.
Okay. I'm sorry this is a Friday I like to end, but I'm only dealing with the news that's happened since I last spoke to you. Isn't that amazing?
It's just, you're right. You go to bed at night, you're listening to Colbert or whoever, trying to just kind of find some laughter to go to sleep with, and then in the morning you turn it on, and you're like,
Here we go.
here we go all over again.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Beth.
So, thank you for letting me share that.
Okay, thank you. Bye. Yeah, that's real. That's real. Innocent people end up dying. Yeah, that judicial system. You have any idea if any of those judges were Jews? No, I don't know. Jewish justices better keep their heads down. Jewish media already are on the receiving end of more vile texts and emails than you can imagine. This is happening, okay? Sort of like what Joe, the earlier caller, was saying about it's individuals. It's not these huge. I mean, my God. Remember, Trump told the Mexican president that it's the bad dudes or the bad hombres he wants to go after, and bad dudes in general, right? Did you see who got deported yesterday? I mean, probably a whole ton of people. This father from Pittsburgh, who so many people took to the streets for, who never committed a crime, who was working and involved in the community here. He's been deported. He's not a bad dude. He leaves his family here, his wife here. Another mother, 35-year-old mother, was deported yesterday. Immigration has known she's here and illegal for years and years. She's been here since she's been 14 years old. She married here. She bore and raised 2 children here, both of whom are American citizens. I think her husband is an American citizen as well. She dutifully reported to ICE every year, and they noted that she came in voluntarily, and they let her go because they knew she wasn't a bad dude and they had a lot bigger fish to fry. She went in voluntarily on Wednesday with her frightened family and some supporters outside. She never came back out. The criminalization of law-abiding immigrants who have lived in this country for years is idiocy. It's cruel. It's brutal. It is destroying families. Her weeping daughter. There's a lot of weeping daughters. There's a weeping daughter here in Pittsburgh. There's a weeping daughter there. Those are just 2 I know of from yesterday. Compound that hundreds and hundreds and thousands of times. We are not made safer. And an interesting story today. Headline, farmers backed Trump. Now they're worried. Farmers, especially farmers in California, who cannot farm without illegal labor. That's the reality. And now they're freaking out. Because the people they need to get their products out of the ground and packaged and into our grocery stores, the government wants to round up and deport. So here's just one farmer. He voted for Trump because he really liked the fact that he was going to roll back regulations and lower taxes. And he thought that Trump was just blowing a lot of hot air about illegal immigrants. And he assumed, and this is what a lot of Trump voters did, they assumed that he was just talking to get elected. And that, of course, he wouldn't do it because it would bring down the economy. But as soon as he got in, he started signing those executive orders that have upended our immigration laws, and the farmers there are freaking out. They say if he does this, it could mean that their businesses will go down. 70% of all farm workers living in the United States are here illegally. 70%. That's the approximation. Oh, here's a fourth-generation farmer, California, voted for Trump. If you only have legal labor, certain parts of this industry, this region, we're not going to exist. The growing, the packing, the shipping, the peaches, the plums, the grapes, it ain't going to happen. If we send all these people back, it's a total disaster. They voted for the guy who said he was going to do that. Mary is on the line. Mary, hello.
Lynn.
Hi.
The only thing that I can grasp of how these people could follow this insane line of BS is sheer, honest, just sheer ignorance. The real meaning of ignorance. It's just ignorance. But I wanted to mention last night on Charlie Rose. There was a panel, and what they were saying is what the Russians have on Trump. It's not a sex. It's nothing sexy.
No.
He would laugh it off.
No. I agree. It's financial. It's why he won't release his.
No. What they suggested last night, if I interpreted the whole what they said, and there's always
okay. What is it?
Well,
what is it?
That they have proof that that the Russians stole the election for Trump. It's his presidency that's on the line here.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the trail of how it's the proof that he stole the election.
Well, here is where there should be so many investigations. Think of the 700,000 Benghazi investigations, none of which came up with a damn thing. Can you imagine? There have got to be investigations to get to the bottom of this. Unfortunately, because the Democrats don't vote, we have a Congress totally in the clutches of the party that is enabling this criminal.
The situation is right. It is everything lined up. It was the perfect everything. It's perfect. They have, no one's going to question them. They have everything. If in history there was a time, everything just lined up. The people there, you have such a huge, amount of Americans that are they're just ignorant to the truth. The rest of us are having fits in the street and protesting and doing everything that we're out of our minds. We cannot believe it. But what's the bigger thing is, okay, 4 years, this is a finite gig. This is it. What is going to, the next administration, what their cleanup is going to be, is not just going to be the
well, don't get ahead of yourself there. We got 4 years. We got 4 years.
Okay,
if you're saying no, it's not okay because I don't see it going 4 years, and I don't see us surviving 4 years of this.
We will. We have to keep this is survival 101. We got to think of This is a finite. We have a finite prison sentence here. We're going to get out of jail. But the thing that's getting me is this isn't just going to be the economy or the environment needs to be cleaned up. What's happening now has gone, it's now values of prejudice. Our society, prejudice is going to be accepted. Our rights. I don't even know where do you start to clean this stuff up at?
Okay, I agree with you. I'm going to take your call as just a scream into the wilderness, and I completely understand. I do.
Thank you for being there, Lynn.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you to Let's just keep our heads. I think sort of, Mary, what you were talking about, Diane has written an email. It is not logical to think that the Russians went through all the trouble of hacking and publishing Clinton's and the Democrats' emails and then leave it to chance that this would be enough to guarantee a Trump victory. It's not logical. This would be like a bank robber surveilling a bank and getting into the vault and then not stealing the money. It defies credulity. The media, in all of its weakness, too readily accepted the notion that the vote wasn't hacked. This makes no sense. It doesn't fit. In an assessment made, the intelligence community stated the following. This is from a declassified version of a highly classified assessment released on Friday, January 6th. The U.S. intelligence community laid out its judgment that, and here's the quote, Vladimir Putin ordered an influence campaign in 2016 aimed at the U.S. presidential election with the specific goal of harming Hillary Clinton's electability and potential presidency. And then the report went on to say, quote, we further assess Putin and the Russian government developed a clear preference for President-elect Trump. Diane says, I believe that the outcome of this election was decided before even one vote was cast in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Ohio. Well, somehow we've got to find out if we're going to be saved here. It's the two entities that he's trying to take down and get a lot of Americans not to believe in or respect. If we're going to be saved, it is the two that he's targeting. That is media and the judiciary. They are this country right now. Its only hope. And I remind you that this is classic. If you know your German history, this is classic. Judiciary, media. They grab the executive and the legislature, and then you only got two that are standing in your way. An independent judiciary. Hitler did away with it very rapidly. And an independent media. And Trump is doing, he can't say media without putting dishonest in front of it. Dishonest, very, very dishonest, misinformation. That's what he did to little, Marco and Lion Ted. This works. This works. If he's brilliant at anything, it's branding, right? Well, every chance he gets through his tweets, through his speeches, he attempts to undermine the media. The reporters, who are the only ones standing in between us and the Fourth Reich, frankly. And now they're going after the judicial system. If we have a terrorist attack, it's on that judicial system. Okay, I leave you with this. It's a gift. Laughter. CNN last night started a series called History of Comedy. The first installment, I think it's 8 installments long. If the other 7 are as great as the first, wow. Treat yourself. It's got to be on demand. CNN, History of Comedy. Oh my God. It's a history lesson in toto, and of course with unbelievable clips from the greatest humorists in this country. Last night, man, I saw more Lenny Bruce than I've ever seen. I saw more Red Fox than I'd ever seen. And they can't do it all because it's, and Carlin, Richard Pryor. Unbelievable. Don't miss it. Don't miss it. I'm going to watch it again. I'm recording the entire series, and I will watch that again until the next one comes. That good. Treat yourself. Pull yourself away. That's 1 hour of total, wonderful, educational, funny distraction. Okay? And have a great weekend. See you Monday.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.